Welcome to the Cool Fireman Podcast, a virtual firehouse kitchen table with Matt, Adam, Brian, Doug, and Freddie, where they discuss everything that matters in today's fire service. Now let's get to the show.
And we are left unattended.
But when you're the sober ones.
But we are the Cool Fireman Podcast. Welcome to this week's episode. It is prime vacation season, so you got two of us, but we are not skipping a week, are we, Adam?
No, we're the busy ones, and we also have no lives.
Cheers. Cheers. Cheers to the Coke or the Dr. Pepper. I got Dr. Pepper tonight. Good times. All right, Adam, you want to kick us off?
All right. Welcome to the Cool Fireman Podcast. I got to change my camera. There we go. Welcome to the Cool Fireman Podcast. I'm Unkie. We're with Brian from East Coast Kelly's. Our podcast is sponsored by UnkieSeason.com.
That's right. Unkie Season.
And also the Burn Box. Yeah. Oh. Let's see. The Burn Box.
The Burn Box.
It's a Firefighter-owned subscription. Get all kinds of cool stuff in it. Guess what's in it this week, Ryan?
Same thing as last week?
Yeah, nothing. All right, got
June boxes shouldn't have been going out to everybody. I know I'm waiting on mine. Super stoked, though. I have been hit up quite a few times about our recipe for buffalo chicken burgers that are in this month's episode. And we just sent our recipe in for July. So super stoked about that. I think you're going to love it. My family definitely did when they ate this one. And I know your Firehouse family or your regular family will. So really cool. Both are Firefighter-owned companies. Unkie Seasoning, a Firefighter-owned company. You'll love that seasoning as well. Yes. Adam's getting it out right now. He's going to show it. There you go. He's going to show it.
All right. All right. So we got some task force tips. The rescue folding spanner wrench, which I already have one of these. Is awesome. Now I got a set. I got one when I first became a volunteer firefighter over 20 years ago.
You know, some people were talking a little smack about that on social media, but I'm like you. I think I would want a set. Yeah. Right? Like somebody was like, oh, I already have one of those. It's like, well, why wouldn't you want a set? If you're doing spanner wrenches, you would want two, right?
Yeah. And if you get one, go buy the other one.
Yeah.
So the other one is a recycled firefighter, the Sergeant wallet from Recycled Firefighter. So little.
I've been wanting one of those.
Well, you'll get it when you get your box.
Nice.
So yeah, Recycled Firefighter does a lot of cool stuff. There's also a T-shirt, Recycled Firefighter T-shirt. It's actually the wash machine. I wore it earlier today. Recycled Firefighter T-shirt. That's from Axe Head Threads. They're fantastic. A lot of times you get shirts from them. I love them. They're so comfortable. So you also got a training bulletin. So using predetermined apparatus assignments and writing assignments to improve fireground operations. So then all kinds of cool stuff in there. Tells you what everything is. Anyways, there's also a recipe for buffalo chicken burgers. It serves 4 and looks mighty good.
Sweet.
So went out the works. Firehouse, love it.
No doubt. You have to take a look at that and let us know if you make it. Tag the Burn Box and East Coast Kelly's and the Cool Fireman Podcast in it. If you do make that recipe, we would love to see it on whatever platform that you are on. So not wanting to deviate a whole lot from our directives of what we've got going, I want to do the moment of silence this week. And so I want to dedicate it to anybody that we've lost this week. I know we've had some wildfires kicking off. It's extremely dry right now. And in this part of the world that we're in, we're kicking off hurricane season. And so I'm sure there has been a line of duty death. And if there hasn't, I know that a very tragic anniversary has passed within a little over a week ago. Would have actually been during last week's episode, but some local line of duties. So let's take a moment and honor those. All right. Good deal. So this week's episode, we're going to talk about the hiring processes. And since it was just the two of us, I thought what better way to kind of showcase and discuss really what does that look like for career civilian and career DOD. Adam usually is the guy that sits back and listens. He's the quiet guy at the firehouse table. And so on episodes like this, I get to bring him out of his shell. And so when I found out it was just the two of us, I said, what can I get Adam to talk about? And so I wanted to know about that DOD process because, folks, we have listeners all around the country, Adam, as you know. And for those that are listening, it's the beginning of the budget season on the civilian side. So some departments have picked up positions, or maybe people are going to be retiring in the fall. They've got that outlook of those departments coming on and off. So if you're an aspiring firefighter, right, what does that look like? So Adam, kind of take it away, and being the former union president, what is that deal?
Secretary Treasurer, don't insult me.
I'm sorry, Secretary Treasurer. I was going to put president on you. I used to be.
Don't insult me. Call me that.
Well, I was the local president back here in my chapter.
Exactly. Don't insult me.
Oh, okay. Man, jabs all the way around.
Man, I met you, buddy. All right. So if you want to get hired on in the DOD, we do have some standards that we'll call the city in general doesn't have, or we're extremely tight and sensitive on. So first off, let's start with the hiring process. Like my department here in Navy Region, Mid-Atlantic, we're advertising through Facebook, word of mouth, a lot of social media campaigns. So we're doing what's called a direct hire. So we have an email address that you emailed your resume, your certifications, your name, your information, blah, blah, blah. And one of our district chiefs, which is you can consider a battalion chief in the city or division chief, goes to this email and finds your email, it selects you, starts reviewing your information. And if he likes you, he'll email you for more information what your next step is. And there's also another way through usajobs.gov, I believe it is.
Yep, that sounds right.
That's so long. That's another place that advertises all government jobs. And you'll do the same thing with that. The thing is, like my department, we're not on USA Jobs because we have direct hire authority. All that means is you're bypassing a section of human resource. That's it. Bypassing the website part. When you fill out your resume on usajobs.gov, word of advice, if you have CPR, put in there that you have CPR and parentheses, whatever CPR stands for.
Cardiopulmonary resuscitation.
There we go. You spell it out. If you have EMT, emergency medical technician,
Matt, cue the TikTok.
Paramedic. So you spell it all out if you go through usajobs.gov because it goes through a word finder before it gets to a human, and you have to hit enough word finds. So once they select your name, they'll take some of your information and they'll start doing a background check on you because you will have the potential to be a federal government employee. We have to worry about bad guys. Mm-hmm. I say that not only if you're a bad guy, but also make sure you're not a target for a bad guy. So if you have really bad, horrible credit, you owe people money, that puts you in a desperate situation. So where somebody can come up to you and say, hey, I'll give you, $2,000. I just need you to take a picture of this. I'll tell you, it might be nothing. It might be a side of a building. But to them, it's a puzzle.
It's intelligence.
Yes. It's because you might see a building and it might be an antenna on top of that roof. And they can tell a lot by which way it's pointing, at the angle, and what kind of intent it is. So they want to make sure that you're not in a situation where you can be bribed. Of course, they don't want felons. Let's say that's like an easy one probably to say.
Yeah.
Some people do have had DUIs and got hired with us. So if you had one of those, and long as it's a mistake that you have corrected with your professional self, still apply. Yeah.
Yes.
The federal government knows and understands people do change. So they're really kind of cool about that. But yeah, so they go through a security background check with you and a financial check on you. So they'll pull a credit report on you. So just gotta make sure you're not a risk to the federal government, because
and this ain't no JCPenney credit check where you're trying to get a credit card. They're really looking at it, right?
Oh no. And then we got the security check. It gets really detailed. I'll go into that. Yeah, I'll go into it now. Every 10 years we have it. Look like we're getting joined.
Yeah, Matt's joining us. He texted me. I wasn't going to interrupt your train.
Oh, it's okay. Sir, we're talking about getting hired in the government. Okay. I can't hear you, but you can hear me. So we get to a security check. Every 10 years we do a security check background. So I had mine a couple years ago, and I filled it all out. I filled it out at the last second. So I had some dates wrong. I was asking about my first marriage and like, when do we get divorced? When do you get married? And I'm on my phone, my mom filling it out. I had less than 24 hours to turn it in. And so when I got in there, started interviewing with the guy does my background check. And they ask you a question, they already know the answer to it.
Mm-hmm.
So he's like, I see that you put a question mark on the year of the date you got married and when you got divorced. And he says, why is that? He says, what's the correct date? I said, I don't know. I said, but you know. I said, I'm not trying to hide nothing. I just don't know what it is. But I'm telling you, he's like, I don't get it, which is why don't you know? I was like, do you remember your ex-girlfriend's birthdays? I don't. I had nothing to do with this person anymore. Nothing. Why do I need to know something about them? You know? So, but they're very thorough in your investigation. They found out that, I pooped my pants in first grade at lunch on a Wednesday. That's terrible. Yeah, but it's okay. It's okay. It's for the government, buddy. So they do a thorough background check. And if you pass that, then they'll set you up for a drug test. You go and pee in the cup. And then they'll set you up for trying to figure out which order it is. Says a drug test and a physical. Make sure you're not going to die on them, and then they'll do like a little agility test. So mine's different than probably somewhere else in the region or in the Army's different than mine. So it can be long. I can only specify talk about my area. We're quick to hire people. Process people. Right now, it's just getting people to apply. One of our good friends, Nick Hammond, he just got picked up by an Army base in South Carolina. He's been picked up twice by Fort Lee here in Virginia, and turned him down. Apparently, decided to go southern from us. So, anyways, I don't know what questions you got about hiring.
Well, what I wanted to do was
here we go. Here's another key one. I forgot to tell you. 37. You cannot be older than 37 years old in the Department of Defense, because you have to do a minimum of 20 years, and they kick you out at 57. That you can stay to the end of your birth month of 57 years old. Now, we're in a special retirement category. We're in there with certain police officers and air traffic controlmen. So all your air traffic controlmen got to go at 57.
Yeah.
So we get what city guys
federal law enforcement is there. Yeah.
What city guys call Leo. So we get a
separation allowance.
a fake social security check. We'll put it away, a social security check, to make us until we are old enough to receive social security. So when we leave at 57 or earlier.
Yeah, that separation allowance is no joke. There's a lot of states that wish they had that. And if you're DOD or a state that has that, that's phenomenal. Our law enforcement here gets it, and they get a 25 and a separation allowance. And it's a percentage of until you can get on Medicaid.
Yeah.
Medicare, sorry.
So that's one of our big things. Our inspectors, there's no age requirement for them.
Do they ride shift days? Like our military base does one shift day a week to keep them on a 56-hour work week.
Their boss, the chief of inspections, does, but the inspectors are not. They're 40-hour employees.
Yeah. So that's the key thing to remember, and that was kind of where I was going to segue. I was actually going to ask both of those questions, so you answered both of those. Is, can you get into the system and transfer? And the answer to that is yes, you can. And so you can transfer in, but you still have to leave at a certain age. That's what I've been familiar with around here. That 57 online work is huge. And there are certain positions that you can go that are non-sworn. So like you said, the inspector, you can come in at any age. So if you're a civilian firefighter and want to go work a minimum of 5 and get a supplemental retirement, you've been a civilian and you've got some experience, as long as your IFSAC credentials will allow you to do that, you may be able to transfer in for other jobs. Maybe it's a safety position. There's all kinds of things in the DoD world that are pretty impressive. And so on that retirement system. So those are pretty impressive. Work schedule wise, they're all over the place on bases around the country, but the majority of those are switching to the 48-48, right?
Yes, they're either 48 on, they're 48-48 or 48-72. So those are the main ones now. I think there's only one base left that is 24 on, 24 off. Everybody else is switching to a 48 something. What is the cool thing about if you want to take advantage of working for the Department of Defense, you can move around. You can move around for promotions. You can go work in Italy, Greece. Yeah. There's a lot of other countries. Japan is one of them. Guam. There's a lot of stuff that you can do. You can travel. And that's one of the coolest things with that.
Speaking of travel,
there's extra benefits if you do go overseas.
I was going to say, let's talk about the benefits of it. So there's the base pay that you come in. I think it's a GS4 with no experience. Not trying to get into the nuts and bolts of it, but that's why we're talking about it on this episode, so people have a clear understanding of what they're getting themselves into, right? And then you have location pay, and then you can, with the direct hire, you can come in as a GS5, which is one step up based off of experience. Am I saying that correctly?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay.
Depending on your certs and stuff, certifications.
Yeah, so those key words and making sure that you can articulate all of that correctly, either in the direct hire email or your resume, all of that stuff is crucial. So kind of explain what the GS4 means, what the GS5, how can they go look at it on the internet, that kind of thing. Because y'all have like your own little website. I mean, you don't have to name drop it, but like, how would they find it? How would they know how to find that?
Google CNIC Fire Department. That's the easiest way to do it. That's the fire chief of all Navy fire. That's the easy way to look at it. But yeah, you'll come in. GS3 is no experience. We'll teach you. GS4, and yeah, each level grade has you have to have a hold a certain certification, and it depends on what base you're at.
Mm-hmm.
So, and what bases require what? Because like Army requires for you to be a full-fledged firefighter, which is a GS7 position, they require you to have hazmat. It's a command or anything, or tech or something. Yeah,
it's hazmat tech.
Yeah, but not me in the Navy. We don't require that. So
can that be installation specific?
Yeah, and it can be installation specific because my base, we're a ship base. So you're required to have shipboard firefighting. But under my district chief, he also has an air base. So they're not required to have shipboard, but they're required to have airport firefighter.
Yep.
Airport rescue firefighter. So,
Right.
well, that's still in the same category as one of our levels, our GS scales, and we go all the way up to 7. So, you guys have your firefighter 1 and 2, your hazmat ops, awareness and ops, your EMT, a driver or operator, and like in my area, depending on what base you're at, shipboard or airport firefighter.
Yeah. And you can see those locale pays based off of that website that you gave.
Yeah.
And that will tell you, because so it's base plus location, and then your schedule pay.
Yeah.
They'll
show it. They'll like, our salary. If you look it up on the GS scale, I'm just throwing a number out there. It's $35,000. Well, you got to look at that's what our GS scale pay is. But then there's a next line that says firefighter pay, and that's, significantly more. So
that's your hazard.
Yeah. Because
that's basically for hazard.
We work on 144 hours a pay period. We get paid 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So
cool. So we'll hold that. We'll hold the DoD process kind of in the wall there for a second, and we'll talk about the civilian side. And I'm glad Matt was able to come on, because I want to talk East Coast process versus West Coast process real quick. And I think we're going to find that there is a lot more similarities in the East Coast, West Coast process than there is DoD. So obviously for us, municipalities will post a website or post a job on their website, on their government website. They'll list their credentials. You'll apply. In some instances, there may be a general test, general knowledge firefighter test to weed some out. And so some may require you to go with no experience through a fire academy or some type of baseline training. And then other agencies as a whole will run you through their own training academy if you've already got your certification. So, for example, we can hire a blend of both of those, and they'll just go straight to work, go through like our own in-house kind of academy. And those are pretty awesome because it says, hey, here's how the book told you to do it. Now we're going to teach you how we do it here at our firehouse through our different policies. Hey, this is how we load our hose. You learn 7 different ways. Here's the one way we do it, or, the couple ways we do it. And then in addition to that, we require firefighter EMT. For us, and this is kind of the unique thing. Our driver operator at our organization is not picked up until year like 3. That's at my department. But other departments, you're driving like 6 to 8 months in. Like you're getting behind the wheel, you're getting used to it. North Carolina requires a Class B license. I don't know what other states require. Basically, it says if you're driving a truck that weighs this much, you have to have this special license to drive this truck. And so they really try to get all the heavy classes out of the way, the 1, the 2, the EMT, those big hours. And they said, hey, we'll get to that whole driving thing here in just a little bit. And so starting pay, man, it's all over the place. We have some departments that are, 50-ish. And then we have some departments that are still in the 30s. And it is a struggle. And when I say that's what it is, that's what it is. And they're working schedules from 24/24s to 24/48s. And so they're a little bit all over the place. But I tell you what has become really big around here is part-time pay. And I mentioned this a couple of episodes back, is that new firefighter, the way that they supplement their pay is they're going to leave that 24-hour shift and then go work another 8 or 10 somewhere else. And so they'll pull another 20 hours a week and make another 20 to 30,000. So if they're making 30 to 50, they're really making 50 to 70 because of that part-time pay, if that makes sense. And so they're working a lot of hours, but they don't have the side gigs. They're not owning their own companies like you are, Adam. They're not doing other things. They're all in. And that was kind of and I don't want to go down this rabbit hole again, but that's my fear, is burnout is going to be very real for those folks because they are all in like 5 days a week, and in some cases 6 to 7 days. They are leaving, going, coming, whatever, from a firehouse, and that is the realness that is the fire service right now on the East Coast. So, I wish there was a different environment for that, but I don't know that there really is. Matt, what does your hiring process look like West Coast, or is it very similar?
I got a question for a man before he starts. What's in your mouth, buddy? You got a mouthful of chew. Hot chow. One, yeah.
Gotta put the hot down.
Ooh, yeah, that. Okay. All right, go ahead. Sorry.
No, you guys just threw down a whole bunch of stuff, and I didn't write any of it down. But the first thing that I wanted to bring up was that people don't realize is what you just said, Adam, about working a 48. You just said you work 144 hours in 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
That's 72 hours a week. So we work a 56-hour work week. We work something called the Kelly schedule on the West Coast. There's modified Kellys. Our partner across the way, our big department that is on the other side of our hill, they work 48.96. So to work a 48.48, to have 1 day off, to have 2 days off, that is not a lot of time off. And it almost doesn't even feel like you have a day, because, you get crushed on the last night of your 48, or if you're working 24, whatever, and you get crushed, man, you're going home, you're going to bed if you can, or you're going home to the kids, whatever it is. That is rough, man.
So we let him compensate you.
Right. Now, that's where it comes in with built-in overtime, right? Because in the country of the United States of America, we have, we have work laws that state you work over 40 hours a week, and it's overtime. So you guys are making time and a half for those extra,
38
hours,
38
hours, whatever. Yeah. Which is good. And you're being compensated for it, as long as your hourly pay is equal to what life needs for sustainability.
As we tell people, if you're not making 3 figures, a 6-figure salary, you're doing something wrong.
That's rough. That is rough, man. And, it's funny because, when I had my little heart issue, thinking about whether or not they're going to retire me or whatever. And then I start talking to you guys. And even before I met you guys the last few years, I had, Kelsey comes from the Midwest, from Ohio. And we've thought about or talked about moving from California for a multitude of reasons. And now that I had this little issue, I'm like, maybe this is God or whoever speaking to me saying, hey, Nimrod, slow down, do something else, be happy. But anyway, that's a whole other issue. But as far as hiring stuff goes, I would say that the main issue or the main difference, there's a lot of differences between Adam, DOD, and we have Kent Pendleton that's near me. So I would imagine that they have all the same stuff that you guys have. They work a different schedule than civilians, up and down the West Coast. They whatever. They have the same sort of 37 years old and all that kind of stuff. It's all the same for them. But as far as for us, Brian, I think that ours are pretty similar. We're very impacted. It's very tough to get a job on the West Coast, at least in Southern California. It took me 7 years to get hired. I had to, I started when I was 21, and I started volunteer with the county, and I started working on an ambulance. So I just started getting my certifications, my EMT, put myself through fire academy. Then I went to medic school, put myself through a medic school as a civilian, and I had to do all these things. And then while I was doing that, I was putting in applications for departments up and down the coast of California. So I took a test in San Francisco. I have family that lives in the city. So I called them up. I said, hey, there's a test going on this day. Can I stay with you? Yeah, sure. So I fly in. This is no joke. I fly in. I stay at their house overnight. I wake up early. I had to be at the test by 7 a.m. We show up. It was a big rainstorm that night, which is typical for Northern California. I get there, and we're all standing in line in it's pouring rain. We're just soaking wet. They had a little awning thing that we were trying to all huddle underneath. But anyways, they had the power outage, at the building, and they said, "Hey, so sorry, we're not going to be able to administer the test today, but what we're going to do is it's March. Let's say it's March 12th. We're going to stick you at the very end of the testing process, and now you guys got to come back in May." I was like, "You got to be kidding me!" So I got on the plane, flew home. So I was living in Orange County at the time, and in May, I rebooked another flight to fly up there and take their test. It was, and so that's what it takes. It's,
I was waiting for you to say where you met your wife there. Like, this is like a rom-com.
No, not in San Francisco.
Raining in the awning. I'm like, all right, where's the wife showing up? Where's she showing up?
Yeah, so I didn't get hired.
And she walked out with a hand towel to dab his face.
Yeah, but like Alameda County, I mean, all those counties up in Northern California, it's the same thing. The big departments, Los Angeles Fire Department, whether it's the county or the city, they'll have, I think still, I don't know, it's been, 15 years since I tested with them, but they have 5,000 to 8,000 people apply.
That's nuts.
And then they'll put together, they do their own fire academy. So you don't have to have a fire academy in order to apply with them. You literally have to be 18, have a driver's license, and have passed high school and have a pulse to apply for them. There are a lot of, not requirements, but desired attributes, if you will. So if you have your paramedic license or your fire academy, whatever, you get extra points. Going up and down the state, it's very impactful. I mean, just for our department, we have a small department, and we'll take the first 500 applications, and then we'll weed it down to about 200, and then the 200 will take. Or now it's a different process they'll do like a standard written test now. It used to be when I was getting hired, they would each department would put their own written test on. So you show up, you take the written test. If you pass that, then they weed you down into a captain's interview. Then you would do a chief's interview, and you have to do what they call a biddle. I don't know if that's probably not synonymous or universal term, but it's just a physical ability test that you have to take. It's intense. And I always tell the young guys, I mean, it was told me when I was trying to get hired, it's a full-time job trying to get a full-time job. You're when you apply for a department, you have to do a station visit. So you got to call them up, talk to the station captain or whoever. Some departments have stipulations and regulations on how that works. Some do 1 day. That's it. And you got to show up. But you got to do a station visit, and you got to ask, different questions that you're not going to find on the internet. You know what I mean? If I'm going to test for a city of Redondo Beach, I'm not going to just go to redondobeach.com and learn how many residents they have, what's their square, miles of population, whatever, all those kinds of easy answers, because they're going to ask you questions where, like in the interviews that are more pointed, so if you don't have that information from like a station visit, then you're not going to do very well on the interview. So it's a pretty intense process, but I don't know. There's a couple other things that you guys said that I already forgot. But.
Well, I want to circle back, because I think you hit on a couple of things. Certain markets, it's very hard to get jobs, and in certain areas, it's well, we do have 3 in the bottom of the bucket. We'll take those 3 kind of things. But I tell people all the time that in academies, when I was teaching there on a regular basis, or anytime, like my impression, somebody informed me this years ago. It was my first training officer at the city. He told me, he said, you may not realize it, but you're in a job interview from the time you enter the fire service. Whether you're a volunteer, whether you're a career person, you are in a job interview for the rest of your career. And everything you do, even how lazy you are when it comes to cleaning up after dinner, is in the interview process. That will follow you no matter what. So doing your homework, knowing about the community is huge, but also who you are. Like, telephone, tell a friend, tell a fireman. That was the other thing that was always said. Like, I mean, if you're listening to this podcast and you've hung out long enough, you need to know that if you're worried about what you've done in the past, I think Adam, he brought it up, and it was kind of good in that little, synopsis of where they talked about the internal affairs. I know several departments here on the East Coast that do psych evaluations, and now as part of their entry exams, and it's one of those things like you're an open book. You might as well be. I mean, you're going to be when you go into that firehouse. The people are going to know more about you than probably your spouse does in that instance. So it's okay. Like Adam said, they're going to know things about you that you didn't know that they knew about you. And you have to own those things because, I mean, your job's going to depend on it. Like if you want to make this your career, you need to own it. And then you also need to know that your ability or desire to not be a 3, we talked about this a while back, is what's going to make or break you moving forward. If you're satisfied with a 3 and that's what you want to be known for, hey, whatever. But if you're planning on aspiring to be more than that, you got to know that that's going to carry you, and it's going to be that much harder to make up for that lost time. I did want to go back to that psych eval thing. I have a funny story. When I was coming back to my current position, I had to go back through the psych eval. It was not around when I got hired originally. And so I went through, and there was tons of questions, and they told me point blank, look, don't rush through these questions. There's going to be like multiple hundreds of questions. And it's like, do you like looking at teenage of the opposite sex in a state of undress? And I was like, no, why would you do that? And then the next question down would be like some other random question. So I had to get through all of these different questions, and it's all timed, all of this, right? Like, did you just click through it, or were you genuinely reading it? And it's all behavior-based. They're looking at this. So we go to sit down and do the actual evaluation and the review, and the guy who was sitting there for me, and it's like a therapist room, right? You're sitting in this chair, and you're sitting across from this guy, and he's got this little tablet, and he says to me, I'm going to tell you 3 things, 3 fruits, and I want you to remember them. Now, this is very important. I want you to remember it. I'm going to ask you what it is in 10 minutes.
John?
You got
Apple?
well,
I'm sorry.
so he tells me, he says, I'm going to give you 3 fruits, and you have to remember it. It's very, very important. And like, he stressed it. He's like, but I'm going to give you these 3 things, and then we're going to come back to it in 10 minutes. I'll set a timer. I was like, okay. So he tells me them. The only one that I can remember to this day is banana. That is it. And this guy told me, like, me getting this job was on the line, and the only thing that I could remember was banana. So we come back 10 minutes later, and he says, that's all you can remember is banana? And I can remember banana was the first one. And so what did my mind go to was, don't forget it. And so I only heard 1, and what did I do with the other 2? Boop, cut it off. I shut it down. I didn't do anything. And I think in his point blank, what he asked me after that was, he was like, short-term memory is a little something to be concerned with at your age. And I was like, what? And he said, well, your ability to remember something 10 minutes later. And he's like, you only remembered 1 of the 3. And I really stressed how important it was. He's like, how would you combat that if you were hired? And I was like, well, I have in my role, I have like a steno pad, and I have things to write down. And so you didn't give me a pen, and you didn't tell me. I was like, no, but I told you. Right. Thank you, Adam. You're watching on YouTube. He pulled up a steno pad. But those are the things. But anyways, I guess what I'm trying to say is, if you're listening to this and you want to take it serious, go back and listen to it again and write notes down, because I think that that's super important. And so I want to throw our question out, our comment for the episode out to our listeners, and ask them to drop a comment and let our other listeners know. For those that have been around the job for a while, drop a comment and give the 1 bit of advice in the hiring process as to what you think would be beneficial to the person that wants to enter into the career service, regardless of whether it's civilian side, federal side, combination, full-time, part-time, whatever. What's your 1 bit of advice? And so that's how I want to close it. I want to close this week because we said we were going to try to do it pretty quick. So Adam and Matt, what's your 1 bit of advice? I gave mine. You're always in an interview. What would be y'all's?
Mine, because especially it's stressed so hard in the DoD, is don't lie.
Yeah,
because they know especially the DoD, they already know the answer. But I mean, that key advice will something you need to follow throughout your whole entire career. In case any kind of investigations come up, if you steal the pen off the battalion chief's desk, well, it's not a big deal. You're not going to lose your job for stealing the pen. But he starts a formal investigation on you, and he catches you lying to one of his questions, you're fired. Over stealing the pen for a pen? No. For lying during an investigation, you're fired immediately. Just don't lie. Be yourself. They already know the answer. They know people that smoked pot back in the day. Remember that was such a taboo answer? Y'all are old enough. Like, ooh.
Yeah.
They don't want nobody. They not even tried it. Now, if you say you didn't smoke pot, they look at you funny. They look at you like you're lying. So, anyways, don't lie.
Good answer. Good. I like that. How about you, Matt? What's your one?
Good answer. 47 points on the board. What you got, Matt?
You guys both had really good answers. My first gut answer in my head was just be genuine. Be yourself. Obviously, that can go along with not lying. Because if you're going to be true to yourself, you're going to do the right thing for the right reason. I know it's a very cliche thing to say, but I think that it has so much relevance to this subject. Is just to be yourself. We just did a mock interview with a guy who was an ambulance operator for us. We're always trying to help them, the EMTs that work in our department. And one of the things I said at the end, his answers were so canned. Okay. And there was this guy who was very well known. He worked for Long Beach Fire. Anybody that's listening to this on the West Coast knows the name Paul Lepore. He wrote a book called Smoke Your Firefighter. And, when I was getting hired, the guys were like, hey, do you have this book? And I said, no, like, I don't want that book because for me, now there is a way to answer a question. Now you could have 10 different candidates, right? This kind of goes along with what I was saying before is you got 3,000. How are you going to stand out? You know what I mean? And you can have 10 guys answer the same question, the same exact way. And one of them is going to be better because maybe they answered it more in a better manner, not even more correctly, just the way that they came off was better. So that type of advice from that book was okay. But this kid came in and we asked him the standard questions, tell us how your training experience and the education help you, how are they going to help you be a better firefighter with our department? And he had the most canned answer you could tell because he messed up. And then he was like, he kind of like reversed like a sentence and then he continued on. So at the very end, I told him, I said, dude, if I was to give you any advice, this is the greatest advice you're going to get, in my opinion, for trying to get hired as a firefighter, is just be yourself, and have fun. Have fun with the process. The process is crazy. It's grueling at times. You have to feel comfortable being uncomfortable. That right. I tell my 10-year-old, my 9-year-old, I mean, all my kids, I say sometimes I put you in situations, even as a kid, that makes you feel uncomfortable because I want you to start feeling that pressure of life. Yeah. Life isn't just all, woo, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you walk into a firefighter interview with a big smile on your face, those guys on the other end of the table are going, okay, like it's already starting well. If you come in and you're just like big old eyes and it's probably going to happen, like for your first few interviews, it's going to happen where you're just like so tense, you don't even remember what your first name is. But if you can just relax, drop your shoulders, have fun, smile, don't say the same gosh darn thing in every interview. Those were the best interviews that I ever had. Were the ones that I could just, hey, tell us a little bit about yourself. Hey, my name is Matt. I'm this age. I have a family. This is what I like to do for fun. I play sports. I finished school here. Not just start chronologically. Well, I was born in 1984. And I went to elementary school. Then I went to middle school and high school. And then when I got out of high school, it's like, oh my God, dang, I got to listen to 10 or 12 interviews a day. And I got to listen to this. So just have fun, smile, be yourself, do exactly what Brian said and what Unkie said. It's all good stuff. It's all good stuff, but just be genuine, have fun with the process, have fun.
And I solidify one of your, with your answer with one example of an interview I did one time. So I had an individual who applied for a position, and I was interviewing, and he was so nervous. I mean, sweat just pouring down his face and shaking. Like, I mean, the guy was literally shaking at the table. And I stopped him. Myself and our person from HR, we have HR on a lot of our panels. As long as I've been doing it. Anyways, we stopped him. And I looked across the table at him and I said, "Bud, I've known you a long time. And I know that you want to be here. And I know that you want this job. I know that you do. And all I'm going to say is, regardless of whether you do it, you get it, or you don't, I just want you to tell me and tell the rest of these people how good of a guy you are. Okay? That's all I want you to do. All of these questions, they matter, but they don't matter, right? They're to help guide us in a conversation. And that's all this is. This is a conversation. So I want you to do me a favor, take a deep breath, and let's start this over, because I know who you are, you know who I am, and this is just a formality, okay? And we had to do it, but at that moment, within probably, this guy, like I said, he was on the verge of having a panic attack. And it goes back to what we've talked about a couple of episodes ago about preparing yourself. What you did at that table for that guy was monumental. And what no one had done for that young man that came in and did that for me was an injustice to everyone that worked with him and for him in that past. He didn't get the job, and that was not a jab to him. There was a better candidate. Like you said, 10 of them give a good answer. One's just going to give a better answer. And, that was what it boiled down to. And he's better for having gone through it. But that's the other thing too, is if you're listening in a volunteer house world, some of the best things you can do is just sit across the table from some of your, that gave me a thumbs up, a blurry thumbs up, but just sit across the table from some friends and say, "Hey, ask me some questions. Ask me some really hard questions that you may have been asked. Ask me questions. Ask me a question like, hey, have you ever smoked pot before?" And we're going to laugh, but I'm going to get the laugh out here now as opposed to a laugh back then. And then I'm going to be able to answer the question. I'm going to be able to think of that kind of question. So I think those all are awesome answers.
This is a long conversation too. I mean, this is a short podcast that I could easily sit down with a candidate for an hour and give them little tips and tricks. Because there's little things that I, aren't coming off the top of my head right now. But, if you have an interview or a written test, it's been advised to me when I was going through the process back in the day, hey, drive to the place, to where you're going to take the test. That It takes away the anxiety of the morning.
The morning, yeah.
The very first interview that I ever had was for LA City. I drove all the way up there. There's tons of traffic. I was coming from Orange County. It was over an hour drive. Had no place to park. It was all under construction. I was literally parked miles away from where I had to do the interview. And I was in a full suit with this little fake briefcase thing. And I'm like running to try to make it on time. I come up, it's like on the third
There's a little bag, dude.
Yeah, it's, you push the elevator, the thing opens up, and I'm just like dripping sweat. And the girl at the front desk was like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, I think I just ran like 3 miles because I had no clue where to park. So just those little types of things can make your experience a little bit less stressful and help you out at the end of the day. Now, obviously, if you have to drive a couple hours to get to a test, that's not really feasible to drive there the day before.
But Google Maps can help you out a lot.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah. I had MapQuest. This was before, I don't
print it out.
Get your door.
You had it printed out in your dash.
I'd had it printed out, and at least I had the words on there, turn right on this street,
Yeah.
But still, there's little things that you can take the stress out of it, but just have fun, man. It's the guys on the other end on an interview panel, they're human beings too. You know what I mean?
Sure.
We look at them like they're this, they're 20
holier than thou.
Maybe they're 6'4", 315 or something like that. You know what I mean? No,
They're all not big city Dougs by there.
No, they're not all big city Doug. Yeah.
Well, there's two things that I have heard over several hiring panels. One of them was a guy told another guy across the table. Well, this does not come from me. This has come from another guy. He said to him, I think if it was up to us, we would give a job in the fire service to everyone we could. And I think he genuinely meant that. That doesn't mean that they deserve it, but I think that was to relay just how good of a job he felt that being a firefighter was. He said, man, if I could give this job to everybody, I would, right? Like I would just cast it out there for the whole world. And then the other thing that was said was something to the effect of, but the other part of that was we have to be selective and make sure that we get the best for our community, right? And I've said it a couple different times, desire and ability are two different words in the dictionary for a reason. So again, if you can take off those little edges that make it hard on you, on that team to make that decision, that's the difference. Yeah, that is the difference between an unpolished diamond and a polished diamond, right? So I know we probably didn't we turned the short podcast into a little semi-long podcast. So let's kind of try to wrap this up. You want to talk about, since you're on, I won't close it. We'll let Matt close it. And you can talk to us about our fundraiser June 30th. How about that? You want to do that?
June 30th is turning out to be a crazy cool event. Obviously, the only thing I'm apprehensive about is whether or not we can get people into our live on TikTok or not, because TikTok can be kind of funky sometimes. If you're listening to this still, we appreciate you. If you can get on TikTok, hopefully you have TikTok. I don't know if I have enough in me to try to figure out whether or not we can do it simultaneously on Instagram. I don't know if it'll be that difficult. I'm still trying to figure out the details of it, but we have, I think, 7 or 8 sponsors for June 30th, which is amazing. From West Broad, obviously, Unkie, you're giving some seasonings away. We're giving away a free Williams key. We're giving away a fire lid for your helmet from J5 Fire Lids. They're donating. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a segment for each one of those sponsors. And it's going to be based on monetary because, we're trying to raise money for the Red Cross. So that's our main goal. And the way to do that is to get little donations from multiple people, or big donations, however much you're able to give, and or likes. And so you're going to be tapping that screen on TikTok, and that'll push it out to as many people as we can, get them into the live. And then once we make our goal for that specific segment, we're going to bring a person just randomly that's in the live on with us live, and they're going to answer some questions. We came up with some fire questions. We came up with some podcast related questions, as like, who has the biggest fire department amongst all the hosts. So people that have listened to the podcast should be able to get that right. And if they get a certain amount of questions correct, then they win the prize from that sponsor. So obviously, for instance, if it's Unkie's segment, then you're going to win his his seasonings and whatever he's given out. So we have like 7 or 8 of them. They're all amazing. We want to say thank you to all of them, and we will on that day. I can't remember all of them off the top of my head, but I know West Broad and Williams Key. Who am I missing?
J5.
Frank Viscuso is donating a book of his, Flashpoint, with that's autographed. That's super cool. He was a guy that we had on early. I think it was like episode 15 or so. So anyways, really, really cool event. It's just, we got to get people there. And I'm super excited about it. If you can tell, I kind of came, it's come around, and it's going to be super fun. So it's Sunday, June 30th, 4 p.m. Eastern. So it'll be 1:00 my time. I think it's a Sunday on the 30th, June 30th. Yes. And we'll be there. We'll be TikTok live. Follow the Cool Fireman on TikTok, and you can find us. But hopefully we get a whole bunch of random people. And look for us if you are on TikTok. Look for us in the next couple of maybe in the next week or so, because we're going to do some kind of mocks just to make sure that we have it dialed in and figured out. So.
Well, and the last thing I was going to say was I think some of us are planning on maybe doing some cooks live during the event as well, showcasing some of the products. Yeah, or who knows? We may even get into like, I don't know, a live podcast version of where we're talking firehouse stuff on the live too. And so we may even, I don't know, we got to do it. But more importantly, in addition to that, is if you can't make it on the 30th, go ahead and donate now. Or if you can't make it at 4:00 on June 30th, And then the second thing with that is tell your friends, because we want it to be as big as it can be. So at the firehouse on June 30th, if you're working, man, everybody needs to jump on. Everybody needs to tap the screen. Everybody needs to help us out. And so we'll be doing that live, and we'll be sharing the love for sure. So awesome.
We have some money. We have some money goals too. So my wife is like super excited that if we get to $1,000, I'm shaving off my mustache. So that'll be gone. I'll shave my whole head if we get 2,000. I think Freddie said 5,000. He's going to eat
the one chip challenge.
Chip in the world. The one chip challenge. So that'll be super fun if we can get to $5,000. There might even be a likes. If we can get like maybe 1 million likes or something like that out on the live, that would be super cool. So I know it's a huge number, but it means a lot to us. And if we can get to that number, that just allows us to get to our monetary goal. And I don't know. I think it's going to be fun. We're gonna have a lot of fun. It'll be a lot.
I was going to say, I think what it means more to us is to the people that it helps, and I think that's what's really cool. I mean, it's a big win for us, but it's an even bigger win for the people who it's helping, and I think that's what's really important.
Absolutely. Red Cross is a great organization.
Cool. Well, who wants to say the magic words?
Matt.
Go ahead, Matt.
Roll it, Gigi.